Hello everyone, myself Purushottam, working as Assistant Professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering, MLR. In this session, I am going to talk about instance data and static data. So, this is the overview of today's session. So, first I will discuss static variables versus instance variable, then I will discuss static block versus instance block. Okay, so let's get started today's session. First, instance versus static variable. So, as we know that instance variables have their own separate copy in the physical memory. If any changes done in instance variable, that will not reflect on other object. So, this point already covered inside in instance variables concept. And in static variable, what will happen means, so when the static variable, it will maintain a single copy for all variables. Means, if any changes done in the static variable, that will be reflect on all objects in that class. Okay. So, this point I will explain the programmatically now. So, suppose if I take an example, here I have a class, the class name is a student, and here I have two types of variables, the college, and the college is a static variable, and normal name is a instance variable. Now, it is a static variable and it is an instance variable. Now, here I created two objects, Ram and Sita. Ram and Sita are what? Instance variable. It will maintain a different copy in their own separate space. Okay. So, suppose if you take an example, see here. So, in root level, the college name is MLR. It will maintain only one copy for all objects in that class. So, S1 is one object, S2 is another object, and S3 and Sn all objects of the class. And name of S1 is a Ram. So, here I declared name is a Ram, and S2 name is a Sita. Now, if you are changing anything in S1, that will not reflect on S2 object. Okay. So, that is what instance variable. But in static variable, what will happen means, it will maintain only one copy in the physical memory. It will maintain only one copy in the physical memory, and it will share all that copy to what? All objects. So, here S1, the college name is MLR, S2 college name is MLR, for S3 college name is MLR. Now, if you are performing any changes in the root level, in class level, so that will be reflect on every object in that class. So, suppose assume here the college name is MLR. So, suppose take an example. So, suppose if you are changing the name to what? Arundhati. Now, what will happen means, this Arundhati will be reflect to what? S1 and S2 and S3 and all objects in that class. Okay. So, this point I will explain the programmatically now. So, here, so I will take a college name, college. So, first I will take MLR. I will declare with a static keyword. Now, this is a static variable. I will take one more variable. Now, instance variable I will take name, student name, and this will I will initialize within the constructor. Actually, all your instance variable must be initialized within the constructor. So, here I will take name. So, this dot name equals to name. Here I will create one object, student S1 equals to new student. So, here I will initialize the student name is Ram. Next, I will take one more student object, student S2 is a Sita. Now, if you are trying to print this student information, S1 object I am printing, S1 object so name I will print, student name is a S1 dot name. Same the way I will print college name, college name. Same the way I will print S2 object, S2 object. If you run this one, it will print name. S1 object name is Ram. It will print S1 object name is a Ram and S2 object name is a Sita. But both object, the college name is a MLRT. So here I will change S1 object now. S1 object I'm going to change now. S1 name equals to, instead of Ram I will take Ramu, and I will change the college name also. College name, instead of MLRT I will change to what? Arundhati. Now what will happen? Now we'll see. So I will copy these two statements and I will paste here. Now, so before change, you can observe here the S1 object is a Ram and S2 object is a Sita. Okay, and the college name is MLRT and MLRT here. But here instance variable I am changing Ramu, but it is not reflecting on S2. But static variable I change it to what? In S1 object I change it to Arundhati, and S2 object also it is a changing. Instance variable is not changing, but static variables are changing for every object here. Means instance variables will maintain their own separate copy in the heap area, but static variable will be maintain only one single copy for all objects in that. Okay, if you are performing any changes in the root level or class level, that will be reflect on every object in that class. So S1, S2. So two objects there in my class, and if you are changing MLRT to Arundhati, so it is reflecting on two objects here. But instance variable, it is affecting only one object, it is not reflecting on other object. Okay, so that is what instance, that is the main difference between instance variable and static variable. Instance variables will maintain their own separate copy in the heap area, and static variable will be maintain only one copy for all objects. Now, so coming to instance block and a static block. Instance block and static block. Now, what is a static block? In Java, static block execute the code before object initialization. So as we know that the static data, it may be static variable, it may be static method, it may be static block. So all the static data will be get initialized while the .class file is loading into the physical memory. So just before object initialization, just before object creation, your static data will be created. Okay, so a static block code with a static keyword means if any block, if it is declared with a static keyword, then it becomes a static block. So you can see here I have a class, the class name is a sample, and here I have a block. So here I have a block, open brace and closed brace. As we know that open brace and closed brace collectively called it as a block. Open brace and closed brace collectively called it as a block. Now here I have a block, and this block is with the keyword static. Now this entire block becomes a static block. This entire block becomes a static block. Simple, if any block, if it is declared with a static keyword, then it becomes what? A static block. So other names of the static block means static initializer block, static initialization block, and static classes are the other names of the static block. Okay, static block and static initialization, static initializer block and static class all are same. Okay, in different ways we can call this a static block. So static block code execute only once during the class loading. As I mentioned, whenever your .class file is loading into the physical memory, all your static data will get initialized. Okay, while the class loading into the physical memory, your static data will get initialized, and only once it will be initialized. So static blocks always execute the before main method. So as we know that the main method is the starting point of the Java program, and the main method also having the static keyword. But which will be executed first means the static block will get high priority compared to main method. So before executing the main method itself, the static block will be executed first. So a class can have multiple static blocks and they execute the same order they appear in the class. So suppose if I take an example, here I have the two static blocks. This is the first block and this is the second block. Okay, so here the statement static block 1 and static block 2. And here I have a main method. The main method, as we know that the main method also having a static keyword. So main method also static block only. But compared to static block, the main method will get what least priority. Okay, after execution of the static block only the main method will be executed. Okay, so suppose in static block, suppose if you have what the multiple static blocks, in which order this will be executed means whichever you are passing the static blocks, the same order it will execute. Okay, so these points I will explain the programmatically now. So here I have a class, the class name is the static demo. Here I am declaring a block, and as we know that if any block, if it is contain a static keyword, then it becomes a static block. Now here I will declare static block, and here I am writing some content static block 1, and I will write static block 2, and in main method block. So here two static blocks are there and one main method is there. Now suppose if you run this program, now what will happen means, so first it will execute the static blocks, then after it will execute the main method. So if you run this one, it will print static block 1, static block 2 and main method block. So main method get least priority compared to static blocks, and any number of static blocks we can take. So suppose if you write static block here after main method, now what will happen means, first it will print the static block 1, then after it will print static block 2, then after it will execute the main method. Means the same output will get, means static block 1, static block 2 and main method. So coming to instance block. So as we know that if any block, if you are declaring inside a class and outside of the method, then it becomes what? Instance data. So if you are declaring any block without a static keyword, then it becomes an instance block. So suppose if you take an example, so this is also called what? Initializer block, static initializer block. Okay, so suppose if you take an example, so here I have a class and the class is having one instance block. So here I opened and here I close, means open brace and closed brace collectively called it as a block, and without a static keyword, then it is an instance block. Without a static keyword means obviously it will becomes what? Instance block. Okay, so this area is called what? Instance area or instance block. So static initializer block always execute the before instance initialization blocks. Means if you are mixing with static blocks and instance block, now which block will be executed first means in static block will be executed first. As we know that a static block or static data will be get initialized while the dot class file is loading into the memory. Okay, but instance variables or instance method or instance block must be wait until object creation. Instance data always associated with objects. So instance data must wait until object creation, but static data is initialized while the dot class file is loading into the memory. So which one will be executed first, which one will be executed last means static block will be executed first and instance blocks will be executed last. So however, instance block code will be run at a time of instance object creation. So as I mentioned, so while object creation itself, the instance block will be get initialized. Without object creation, so instance block will not be created. Okay, so these points I will explain the programmatically now. So here I have an example. So instance block. So this is the instance block and this is the constructor. This is the constructor, and here a main method, and here I have one more instance block. So this instance block, when this instance block will be get initialized means while object creation itself, this instance block will be initialized. If you are not creating what object to this class, then this instance block won't be executed. This instance block won't be executed. Now suppose if you are mix up with instance block with a constructor, now which block will be execute first means instance block will execute first. After that the constructor only execute. Okay. So these points I will explain the programmatically now. So suppose if I take an example, okay, static block 1 I will take, I am mixing with the instance data versus static block. So here I will take instance block 1, instance block 2, instance block 3, instance block 2, instance block 3. Now here I am not creating any object to my class. Now here what will happen means, it will execute only the static block. It will execute only the static block. See here, the static block, as I mentioned, the static block will be get initialized while the dot class file is loading into the physical memory. Okay now, but these instance blocks, this instance block must wait until object creation. So here I did not created any object to the class. So these instance block never get initialized. Now what we need to do means, we need to create object to the class. So here I will create object to my class. So here I will create static demo is my class name. So s equals to new static demo. Now here I created object to the class, then your instance data will get initialized. So here you can see instance block 1, instance block 2, instance block 3, it is executing. Now if you are mixing up with the static data with the instance data, now which data will get highest priority means the static data will get highest priority. Okay, so suppose static block here I declared, so here I will declare the static block at last. Even if you are declaring a static block last block, so it will execute first only. Why means, as I mentioned, the static data will be initialized first among all other data. While the dot class file is loading into the physical memory itself, the static data will get initialized. Now here you can see the static block is executing first, then after it is executing instance blocks, instance block 1, 2 and 3. So if you are mixing with instance data with a constructor, now which will get highest priority means instance block will get a highest priority. First it will execute instance block first, then after it will execute the constructor. So this is the order. So first it will execute instance block 1, instance block 2, after that the constructor block will be execute. So constructor will get least priority here. So just now I explain, if you are mixing up with the instance block and constructor and a static block, which will get highest priority means the static block will get highest priority. After that instance block, after that the constructor. Okay, so this is the output of this program. So first it will execute the static block 1, static block 2, after that the instance block will execute instance block 1, instance block 2, after that only the constructor block will be executed. So constructor will having the least priority and static blocks will having what highest priority. So that's about instance data and static data. Thank you.